Let's start from scratch. After you opened Rhino, this is how it should look like, more or less. At the top, you have the typical drop-down menu: File, Edit, View, Curve, Surface, Solid, Mesh, Dimensions, Transform, Tools, Analyze, Render, Panels, and Help. I'm not very often in here because most of these commands can be accessed through shortcuts and commands. Next is the command line window. I will get to that a bit later. It might look like this in your case. I like to have it a bit bigger. Below that, you have the tool panels. At the beginning, it's set to standard. So you can see new, that means new file as in new, which has a shortcut of Ctrl-N, for example. New, open, to open a new file. Going through these toolbars, you can see that some of them, if you hover over them, they have this symbol, this mouse symbol, with either the left or right mouse button colored black, and some of them have both. They means these are different commands. For example, for new, there's only one command: new file. For import, it's either import or open. For saving, is saving or export selected objects. So there are always more options. Some of the symbols have these triangles where there are further commands within that can be also detached as a separate tab if you want. Print, document properties, cut, copy, paste, undo and redo functions, panning. Panning would be, for example, pan. Rotate would be to rotate. Zoom is zoom in and out. Zoom window or target. Zoom extend. If you have an object in here, it will zoom to just show everything which is in the file. Zoom selected means object which are selected. Undo view. Viewports, then the views, you can change the views. For example, right, you can change it to other views. Left, back view, perspective view. Hoppala, something happened here. Yeah, we get to all these. Next is show object snap toolbars. We'll get to that later. Select or unselect. For example, select all would select all the objects, but there are other selection modes. Show and hide objects. Lock and unlock objects. Toggle to the layer panel. We will check the layer panel later. Object properties. Viewport shading. This is how you represent your model in the 3D in the viewport. Shade viewports, render. This is basically starts the render process. Then create lights, options for the program, dimensions, grasshopper, and help. As a command, it basically opens here in this info panel. It opens a window, and for example, if I click anything, if I create a new thing, it actually tells me exactly how to do it. So I actually wouldn't need to do this tutorial at all. I draw a line, tells me about lines. This is an amazing tool, and you can turn off auto update. You can even search. You can search for surface, for example, merge faces. So this is a really great tool, especially if you're starting out. And there are more tools, but I will not go through everything in this first video. This just gives you an overview. But within these tabs, you have additional other commands. So this is about the C-planes, construction planes. Then setting the views in different ways. So actually, you saw some of these already. So for example, the top view where you can change the view in here. I can change here to perspective, and you saw that before here in this drop down panel. Display, we also saw that. So it's basically, you could say in the standard panel, there are the objects which you probably use most, and then in here you have specific to a specific topic. Viewport layouts, visibility. So there's hide, unhide, hide only selected or show only selected objects, hide selected objects, and so on. Swap hidden and visible objects, and so on. Transform, curve tools, surface, solid tools, mesh tools, render tools, drafting, and whatever it's new in the latest version. Depends on which version you have. In the version 6, there is, for example, Grasshopper as part of the installation. Then we have, for each of these, well, not for all of them, but for some of them, you can see that also this panel here is changing. So for example, Curve Tools has all these commands, but it also has these commands. There are a lot of tools, but don't be afraid. You will see it's actually very simple. Okay, so these are my tool panels, and then I have my kind of standard working tool palette, if you want to call it like that. Later I will just show you just a very simple example on what we can do with all these, or at least like the basics. Okay, then here you have your viewports. This is the place where actually the thing's happening. As default, you have these 4 windows: top, front, right, and perspective. And whenever you draw something, then you can see it in the other views as well. Let's go to another shade mode. Shade modes are viewport independent, so all of these can have a different shade mode. For example, this could be ghosted. You can see what so every object is translucent. You can see the back, X-ray, or let's try something else. Yeah, no, not ray traced. Arctic views. I think this is gonna be my title image. I normally really like to work in just one view. So if you double click on any of these, then it opens up, and if you double click again on this or drop down menu, viewport drop down menu I would call it, then it goes back to either what you had before, basically. What else? There is a drop down menu in the viewport. So there's if you right click, you get this drop down menu, and you also get it if you click on this triangle. And here you can change you can restore it. You can change the display mode. You can have a print preview. Let's go out of that mode. It's very slow. Yeah, there are other commands I will also explain in another episode. In one of the next episodes. I would call this like the info panel. Another thing to panels and tools in here, there's always additional functions if you right click. Right click here, for example, opens another pop-up window where there are additional toolbars, and you also can create your own customized toolbars. You can even create your own tools, but that's a bit far ahead. Right, you're gonna have the info box. I would call it info box, where you get infos about your objects, about your viewport. It's, for example, what is the title of the viewport, what is the projection of the viewport. There is, for example, 2-point perspective, which is basically a 3-point perspective, parallel, and a parallel view. Parallel view would be something like this. Perspective, as we had it already, and 2-point perspective would be like this. It also tells you something about the camera lens, the lens length, sorry, the position of your camera, the elevation of your camera, or the set location, the distance, so the target distance, the location, here is you actually can perform an action. You can set the camera to a certain point, and you can also set the target to a certain point. It's very handy sometimes. Place target, then this will move to the center. Then you can define what to show in the background. If you want to show a photo or something in the background, you can define that here. Then we have this info box is the layer panel. At the moment we have only one layer. You can create more layers, you can rename them. There is a render info with the settings for the rendering. Materials. There's actually a library. I very seldom use that. That might be really cool actually to use it. The help file I just showed you before. You can turn this auto update again on. We have the sunlight where we can check if it's on or off. We can check which lights are on and off. We have the display, so each of these let's go back. Each of these modes can be customized. So each of these viewport modes can be customized. For example, show surface edges. You can turn it off and on. And there is more to that, but I will get to that later in another video probably. It's quite a vast program with a lot of different options, but we will try to cover everything. Why I'm doing this is that I actually myself, although I used it for a long time, there are still items which I don't know. There's still comments I don't know, and sometimes I like to go through one by one and see what's actually possible in that program, because there's so many possibilities I haven't even tried yet, although I use it like on a daily basis. And we will go through that for all these tools together. So just to complete this like first overview, we have here you can actually also change these like 4 kind of windows. You can add more windows, but I can switch between perspective, top, front and right. You could actually add another one is like from the bottom or from behind and so on. You can set your own views. Here then we have the snapping toolbar. So for example, I have a block and I want to draw a line from one of these corners, from that corner for example here. Then you can see it kind of snaps to that corner and it tells me it's snapped to end or int. And what is meant by then is this end, which is the endpoint of something, like a line for example, or the end of an edge, you know. Or it's int, means intersection, and you just need to hover over it and you can see intersection of something. In that case it's an intersection of 2 edges, or actually 3 edges, sorry. Yeah. And depending on what you do, you can turn these off and on. For example, here is near. It just snaps to the nearest object, part of the object. In that case, the edge. Point would be snapping to a point. We don't have points in that drawing. Mid would be any midpoint of an edge, an arc or curve. Center point would be if we would have a circle somewhere, or a sphere. Intersection, we just saw that. Then perpendicular would mean if I have if I started a line here in the middle, then I could snap it to the perpendicular, to anything which is perpendicular to that curve, to my line. Tangent object snaps, I can explain it in another video. Project, I will explain it later also. and here you can disable the whole thing. For example, if you have certain things on, and these are the one you're working with, and you don't want to go through and turn them all off and on, you can do this here. Then we have some information about the position of my cursor. You can see the distance, the coordinates, and the distance. Question is from distance from what? Anyway, you see which layer you are. There's a grid snap as well. It just snaps to the grid. Orthographic means it would restrict your drawing in either, depending on the C plane, but it would restrict your drawing to either X or Y, or better to say, it will restrict you to that plane in which you are at the moment in your construction plane. Planar means everything you draw is basically within that plane. Smart track, we'll explain another time. Gumball is this thing where you can actually move your object. So everybody who uses 3D Max or Blender, for example, Maya, they have the gumball. Record history, I can explain another time. Filter, I can explain another time. And then you have just some information about the CPU and the absolute tolerance. The most important window for me is actually this command line window. And the command line window actually tells you what kind of comments happened before. So it will list everything we did. And you can also type comments. So because I know certain comments and I don't want to go through, let's say, the curve tool and find offset curve multiple or the curve Boolean. That's, by the way, a very cool tool. Anyway, I don't want to always like go through and find these things. I just type in curve Boolean, and I'm already in that tool. It also has this amazing autocomplete function where, for example, I type line, I just type li, and then it already autocompletes the most obvious choice in that case. And it also remembers if you now, for example, use light instead, then over time it will remember that you used li for light mainly, and we'll just swap to that. So if I type now line, it's still line. If I go on light, then, for example, here I typed in li now, and then it understood, okay, he's actually looking for light rather than lines. Okay. Yes, forgot to tell you. Let's go here on the layers. Looking at the layer where I am, when I start to draw, I want to know which layer I'm working with. And I could name this now lines or any other name. And I can change the color. This is not the material for rendering, this is just the color of the line. You can also see it here. So you know, okay, you're in this layer at the moment. And one more important thing is the unit of your drawings or the drawing. So you can see here at the moment it's set to millimeter, but depending on what you draw, you should set the units. So you can actually go here, right click and unit settings, and then it goes to this document properties. We'll also go over that another time. But you can set it here, the units, to, for example, meter. Meter. And there's the absolute tolerance also. Something we can discuss another time. And then it asks me to scale. I just say no, because I want to have my grid as 1 meter. So basically my grid now is 1 meter. A 1 meter grid. And I turn off the grid snap. Or maybe let's keep it on. Let's keep it on. So what I would recommend really is to use the command lines and the shortcuts as much as possible, because that will increase your speed, your drawing speed. For example, I still make often the mistake to go here and say view, set view top. I can also type it in top, and it sets it to top. Selecting stuff. If we want to select stuff, we need to have something first. Let's have a point. Okay, let's draw a point. If we want to draw another point, we don't need to go here again, or we don't need to write it again. We can also just right click and it repeats the last command. And this is super handy if you have one thing you want to do over and over again. Then you can see already with the left mouse, I can draw this, can draw a rectangle, and it selects what's ever in here. So there's basically several ways to draw points, right? So I can, if I right click, it does not reselect or unselect. So it only repeats the useful commands. For example, if I would delete something now, and I do the right click, it still draws the points, which is really good. That's important because it also increases the speed of working. Okay, next we just go through these, just very basic. So there is lines. They have a start point and an end point. Polylines. I just write P line. Polyline is a chain of lines. And if I want to finish, I'm gonna restart. Whenever I want to finish with the polyline, I can right click, or I can go back to the origin and it snaps here to the start point, and it automatically closes my polyline. Curve works similar. It has basically a control point, and we go through that a bit more in depth in another tutorial. Circle, ellipse from center. Don't use that very often. Then we have arcs. There are different ways to draw arcs. And what you can also see is that, so you can draw arcs like this, or when I restarted now the command, it actually gives me options here. So at the moment is actually I draw an arc from the center, but I could also draw it from the start point. So you see that there's an underline on these commands within here, and if I now type S and enter, then I'm within that command. I don't start the arc on the center, I started the arc on the start point of the arc. And then it asks me again, do you want to draw the end of the arc or the center, and so on. Let's stick with the end of the arc and let's see what's happening. And then you can define either radius or direction, or you just add another point. And that's how you draw arcs. Or let's say there's one way to draw arcs. Rectangles, pretty simple. Polygons, if I click on polygons, or type in polygons, in this drop down list I can also choose with the up and down arrows on my keyboard. Could also go down here and up, which I use quite a lot if it's a command which I don't use often. And I can click polygon, and then it gives me these options here. Number of sides. Okay, if I could click here, or I could also type N, which I would do normally, and then choose the number of sides I want, for example 5. Enter. Now you see number of sides is now 5. Then you can change the mode on how you draw it. Edge, something I haven't really tried. Star, it draws a star rather than a cell. For example, if I type S, then you can do this. Oh. Repeating a command is right click. Placing the center or whatever, or the start point, is left click. And then you move your mouse wherever you need to. For example, I want to snap here. Again, left click. Okay, I didn't choose the star option, but it doesn't matter. If I would now again do that, number of sides 4, for example, can still actually within the drawing mode, within the action, you can choose stuff, which is amazing. Fillet curves. So all these was creating stuff. Now we could also fillet something. For example, we have this, we have a rectangle, and we want to fillet curves. And again, you could do it like this, fillet or fillet. It's the same. Radius, let's say 5 meters. And then it actually tells you what to do. Select first curve to fillet. Okay. In that case, curve also means line. I can click here, and then it says select second curve to fillet. And I can go here. And it made a fillet. Then you can create surfaces. A surface, for example, which is defined by 3 to 4 corner points. Can make a surface, and it created a surface. And these lines are called isocurves, just to see that there's an object. Just go to another shading mode so you can see the surface. If you don't want to see the isocurves, you can turn it off here. Then we have, and I will go through all these in another video. Fillet surface, that is, for example, if I have a surface here, I just draw something very quickly. Don't worry if you cannot follow that now, but it's fine. So I will go through that for all these things. So I have two surfaces, and I want to fillet them. You can do that here. You can change the radius again. Fillet radius, let's say 20 meters. Select first surface. So I selected this, and then ask me select second surface to fillet. And it does this. Box, we already had box. We have Boolean function. For example, if I have another box here, they are overlapping, then I can select both. If you want to select more than one object, you just shift click, then select both. And then I could use the Boolean function, Boolean union. And then from these two objects become one object. There are more Boolean functions. Project curves, that would be, for example, I have a curve like this, and I want to project this onto that surface. Then you could use this tool, curve, project curve. Select curves and or points to project. You can also project points. Then it asks you to enter, and then you select the surface or the surfaces, and it projected the curve here. It separated the projection onto these different surfaces. So if I would kill this now, you can see that it actually projected the curve onto that bit, but it's separated because these are different separated surfaces basically. More to that in another video. Mesh, I will not talk about meshes yet. It's a completely different topic. And it's also quite extensive, but there are other tools here which are quite important. So for example, I have a curve. Oh, let's go back to these. I have these curves here. They are separated, and I want to join them. Then I can use this tool, join. And of course you can write join, select objects, enter, and it's from 3 curves you get just one. Join does not always work with everything. Explode, sometimes you need the explode function. For example, you want to explode this. It doesn't explode, it just creates these separate pieces of geometry. So now I could basically get rid of some elements of this object. Trim would be if I want to make like a special cut through that geometry or that surface. For example, I want to cut here. I want to cut through this middle bit to just a random point here. And I could select this and trim. Sorry. That would be split or cut. I call it cut. It's actually split. It splits the thing into parts. The trim function is a different one. If you know AutoCAD, then you know this very well. It's trim, TR, works like this. So for example, I have a rectangle and I have another rectangle here, and I want to trim that bit off that rectangle. I could choose this, say trim, and then cut away whatever I want to cut away. I can select this, trim, cut it away, and then join. And by the way, I just typed J and it already knew what I want. Group objects, you can group objects. If I select everything, you can group them, and now if I select it, it becomes a group, and I can do things with the group. Ungroup. Okay, sorry. You can ungroup it again, then everything is separated again. Show edit points for curves. We can go through that another time. Text objects. You can create text objects like this. You can type any text here. You can choose a different font. Impact, for example. So I have Rhino, (3D) tutorial, and you can specify the rotation. 100 meter high, yeah, okay. Thickness, you can also create, you can either create curved surfaces or solids. So basically it gives you a surface. So if I click now, somewhere it created this text. Right click, I get back to the command, and I could now go to surface. Of course now I lost the text, but yeah, doesn't matter. So it created a surface and or solids, and then I have a thickness also. See, I actually didn't know that. I just now, because I tell you that it exists, I was always going here and then did take this and then make a face out of it and then extrude. Extrude surface. But actually there's already a tool for that. So yeah, see, even I used the software so long, there is actually a tool for everything. You just need to know it. But the best thing is really to go through and try every tool available. Rhino, you can then, of course, what else? Where are we? Text. Move objects. You can use the gumball. I don't like it that much, but I like it very much in Blender though. But here in Rhino, I need to get used to it. Moving objects you can do very precisely here, because if you say I want to move it exactly from that point to this point, then that was the move, what the move function does. So you can move an object from a specific start point to a specific point. And there's another option here, it's called vertical, which is also very useful very often. Type V and select from wherever you want to move that object. Vertical is on. Click here and then it only moves in the Z direction. Moving objects, copy objects. Works the same way. Select objects, enter, and then you can move your object. Rotate. Again, you could do that with the gumball, but sometimes you want to be very precise. You can be precise with the gumball as well. That's not what I'm saying. But here you can also like specify exactly from which point you want to rotate. For example, I want to rotate from that point, and I want to rotate orthogonal, so it stops every 90 degrees. I could do that. Okay, this works very well. Scaling, there are different scale modes. Just scaling would mean it scales in 3D space. So it also asks me select the object, then select the point from which you want to scale. Take a reference point like this, or tell a factor, for example half. Pretty straightforward. Flip directions, can talk about it another time, or maybe just very quickly. If we have a surface has always a front and a back, and by flipping it or by using this tool you can actually see if in which direction is it's pointing. And if I click now, it changes that direction. That will be important in future for some tasks. Then there is array functions, which is basically copying in a certain direction several times with a different distance. Align objects, bending or flow along surface. Check objects. I never use this check object. What does it actually do? Select object to check. Okay, let's do that. And then it just tells me, okay, it's a valid Rhino surface object. Cool. I guess sometimes it might be good to know what kind of surface it is. If you're not sure, then this might come handy, or if there's any problem with that surface. Not some surfaces can be corrupt, so yeah, that's a way to check it. Define a block, we can do it another time. And history settings, that's also something for another advanced tutorial. Yeah, so I think I leave it here. So, sorry for this episode to be a bit longer, but I wanted to give you an overview on what you can do in Rhino and what the different things are. As you see, most of it is actually a repetition of commands. Whatever is in here, you can find again there. For example, a box. If you go to Surface or Solid Tools, you have the box again. So it's really just a bunch of commands arranged in different ways, so to suit everybody's needs on how they want to draw. Because there are a lot of people who they don't use the command line, which I highly recommend to do, but they use only the clicking. They click, basically they want to click everything. It's also good if you prefer that. Okay, again, so let's see you next time, and then next time I would explain everything about points, because points are not just points in Rhino. Okay, see you next time.